Welcome to the Village Board meeting for Monday, December 9th, 2024. It's 6:03 p.m. We're here in Village Hall Boardroom. I'm going to go through the beginning of the meeting, but what I want to share with everybody who's in the room, as well as anybody who's online planning to watch, we're going to go ahead and do the pledge. We'll do the land acknowledgement and the roll call. We're going to pause the citizens forum and skip to the item number 1 under new business. Once that is complete, we'll go back and do the citizens forum. So if there's anybody waiting to speak, we're going to come back to you. It's just we have an outside entity that our auditors are online, and we need to do them first, and then we'll go back and finish the rest of the meeting, so it's not a surprise. Okay, so with that, if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Heidi, could you please deliver the land acknowledgement?
I would love to. Before we begin this evening, we would like to recognize the Seneca Nation on whose ancestral territory we are gathering. The present-day village of Fairport sits on traditional Seneca land. The Seneca Nation, with the Mohawk, Cayuga, Onondaga, Oneida, and Tuscarora, make up the sovereign Haudenosaunee Confederacy. With respect, we acknowledge the people of the Seneca Nation on whose land we now live. We honor their past, present, and future contributions to and stewardship of this land.
Thank you. And Megan, can you take roll call, please?
Trustee Wojtka?
Here.
Trustee Bonaski?
Good evening.
Trustee Briggs?
Here.
Trustee Mishler? Mayor Domeratz?
Here. Thank you. Oh, there's somebody else you need to say.
Liana Pasantes?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, from here is where we're going to swap out a few items and move to item new business, item number 1, full year financial statement presentation. And online, I believe we have BST and Company, CPAs LLP. And Ryan, do you have them available online? Okay, so. Hi, Brendan.
Hi there. Can everyone hear me okay?
We absolutely can. I'm going to turn things over to you and let you go ahead and give your presentation.
All right. I have a presentation here. I'm sharing my screen. I don't know if you can see it or not, but I'll make sure this PowerPoint presentation is available electronically for you folks. I shared it earlier just with Megan to get her opinion before I present it, but I'm sharing my screen right now. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to walk you folks through the 2024 audit results. I'm sure you have a full agenda for this evening, so I'll do my best to get through this as quick as possible. With that said, if you have any questions or comments before stop me, I'm happy to address those as we move through the presentation. So, the scope of services provided by BST, your financial statements actually comprise 8 opinions. So within our auditor's report are 8 different opinions, your governmental activities, business type. Your discretely presented component units were actually audited by other auditors. Your general funds, sewer, capital projects, electric, and then the remaining non-major funds. So we've issued an unmodified opinion on each of those opinion units. Unmodified is the highest level of assurance that we can give you, the board, that the financial statements are free of material error, also known as a clean opinion. In addition to the report on the financial statements, we also issue what's called a Yellow Book report in accordance with government auditing standards. It's a report on internal control and compliance. And in that report, if there were any significant control deficiencies or material weaknesses or any material non-compliance, it would be included in that report. However, we did not identify any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses over your financial reporting processes, nor do we identify any material non-compliance that would affect those financial statements. You did not require a federal single audit. Single audits or compliance audits of your federal grants are required when you spend over $750,000. Since you did not spend in excess of $750,000, no federal single audit should look relatively consistent with prior periods. These are the kind of the critical areas of your financial reporting. We do incorporate elements of unpredictability. We do consider fraud when conducting our financial statement audits and examining journal entries and things of that nature. But I'm a big proponent of testing the procurement process in my government clients. I want to make sure you're adhering to not only your procurement policy, but those regulatory procurement policies like the state of New York as well. Your revenue recognition is another one of those critical audit areas, making sure we're putting the revenue amounts in the correct period. Management override of internal controls. As I mentioned, we do consider fraud when conducting our financial statement audit. One of those tests is examining journal entries, just to make sure that those are adequately supported and can be traced to underlying documentation. Cash reps, payroll processing. Payroll is obviously a significant component of your budget. When we go through the payroll process, testing transactions, making sure they are categorized correctly. And definitely when it comes to your electric fund, which adheres to a work order process in accordance with the PSC regulations, it's even more critical. We've gone through your work orders to make sure that those costs are properly allocated. We did consider new accounting standards that had come out, however, none had a material effect on the financial statements of the village. As you might recall, last year we adopted GASB 87, which was our lease accounting standard. We're in year 2 of that accounting standard. There was no issues with that, nor were there any in the prior year. But there were no significant accounting policies that we had to adopt or change as a result of new accounting standards. And then we have our significant estimates that I've detailed here below. Our other post-employment benefits and the net pension liability, they both require actuarial estimations and inputs and assumptions that we go through and make sure that they're reasonable and properly stated in the financials. We do examine depreciation expense, and the other estimate out there would be any allowance that would be necessary for receivables in our financial statements, in particular the electric fund. If you have a copy of the financial statements in front of you, these are the main areas of the financial statements. And again, this is largely consistent with the prior year. The only part of the financial statements that BST owns are pages 1 through 3, and that's our auditor's report. And that's that report on those 8 different components of the financial statements. I jokingly refer to the next section, the management's discussion and analysis, as the cliff notes to the financial statements. They include a summarized financial data of the governmental activities and business type activities, along with some analysis as to what had transpired during the year. The actual numbers, the balance sheets, the income statements, they can be found on pages 13 to 27. The footnotes, which explain the financial statements, are 28 to 59. And then you can see there's some required and other supplementary information that we include in the back of the financial statements. That GASB report that I alluded to earlier, that report on internal controls and compliance, that's in the back of the report, and that can be found on pages 67 to 68. So just a few observations on the village as a whole here, the government-wide level, full accrual. We had an increase in our overall net position. We did receive some federal and state funding during the year, which we used to acquire capital assets. We've invested about $2.7 million during the 24 reporting period in capital assets at the government-wide level, which is offset by about 1.6 in depreciation. Meanwhile, we repaid $260,000 in long-term debt. And so one of the things I wanted to point out as I was reflecting on your financial statements is how good this village is about continually investing in your infrastructure, your equipment, and other activities within the village without having to go out for debt every time that a project's required. You've done a really good job of funding these through grants, through the establishment of reserves, and that puts you in a really good place financially. So I think we should just point that out, that you not only invested $2.7 million in your infrastructure and equipment, but you did so while paying down debt. Like most municipalities, we retirees, and we have a net pension liability. Obviously, when we're making contributions for these benefits, that's the cash outlay, but there's a non-cash component to the accounting, and that liability, when you factor in deferred inflows and outflows, has gotten up to about $3.7 million. As you know, the pension system is very well funded. I think it was around 90% for the period ending March 31st, 2024. There is no mechanism to fund OPEB in the state of New York currently. That's nothing new. There's been legislation out there that's never been passed. And so as that liability relates, there's nothing really the village can do at this point. As it relates to the pension system, some of us attended NICOM this past year and listened to the comptroller speak. You are at the mercy of the markets as it relates to the pension system. And while the pension system had good returns on its investments, there's been an increase in salaries as we've had all this inflation over the last 3 to 4 years. Municipalities have had to increase salaries to remain competitive, and a byproduct of that is that the contribution rates have had to stay steady, even though the markets perform well. The increase in salaries has caused the need to continually fund the system. So to maintain the strong funding, the comptroller indicated he wouldn't be cutting rates anytime soon.
Brendan,
Yes.
can you just share for everybody what does OPEB stand for, please?
Sure. OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefits, and so it's an acronym. And in the case of the village and most municipalities in New York State, OPEB is your retiree health. And so as employees are working at the village, they are in theory earning a benefit that will be paid to them when they retire. And so the OPEB, or that actuarial valuation, is the estimation of those retiree benefits that will be paid in the future.
Thank you very much.
Some quick analysis now. I've moved on to the governmental funds. This is the funds in total, so this isn't just your general fund. I looked at your fund balances in total, and so what I've done is I've taken your unassigned and assigned, which are equivalent to your unrestricted, and I've analyzed that as a percentage of your total expenditures. And as you can see, we've been in this 40% range, and our expenditures this year were higher because, or cash outlay, should I say, but it was all capital outlay driven. It's not like we had significant increases in our routine expenses, and we had grant funds for that too, I might add. So the primary, that increase that you see is really capital outlay driven. We have some projects going on that include your street resurfacing, sidewalks, storm sewer improvements, and sanitary sewers. You guys also want a big fire department vehicle here, a pumper truck. And again, all these outlays were either funded by grants or you were able to finance them internally without taking out debt. Some other projects that were ongoing as of May 31st, which is the Lift Bridge and the Main Street case. Excuse me, say that 5 times fast. So in general, when I look at your financials, and I'm sure others would agree, is your governmental funds are in a really strong position. You did exactly what you intended to do. You saved up your money and used that for CapEx. And that little decline that you see as percentage of the total is totally normal based on the plan that you folks put together. In addition to your assigned and unassigned, you also have the $4.8 million reserve. And there's detail on that in footnote 7, which can be found on page 56. That walks you through all the components of your fund balance, which is also known as your equity. And just from a budgetary perspective, you stuck to the plan. Your revenues were slightly above budget, and while your expenditures and transfers, when you look at in total, came right in on budget. So again, electric fund. And the electric fund, from an operating perspective, essentially broke even. It was a $258 operating income, but when you look at the total increase in your net position, it was higher due to other revenues and capital contributions. Capital contributions would be when third parties donate assets to the village. It's common when it can happen not only in the electric fund, but it could happen in your other funds. If there's any kind of infrastructure or other CapEx improvement that you then have to take over and manage after it's completed. I point out this next line because this is how the PSC or your Public Service Commission who regulates your electric fund looks at your surplus. They back out the effects of OPEB and the pension liability. We talked about those a little earlier. There's a non-cash component to those. And so your surplus would have been 1.3. Your line loss, which is just a metric of your system's efficiency, actually improved from the past year. That means for every kilowatt hour you purchase, you only lose about 3.38%. That's pretty low. That tells us your system's in pretty good shape. So your rate of return, and this is going to be old news because of the last bullet point. Your rate of return was, and this is again in the back of your PSC report, was only 1.44%. That's consistent with the prior year. And those kinds of numbers, which I can tell you this village monitors intently, is an indicator of the need for a rate study. And a rate study is a complex process and involves a lot of data analysis, and you folks were right on top of that. As the audit was going on, your village staff was in the process of going through the rate study. They had gone through the NIFA program and engaged PLM, who's doing quite a few of these, and had that rate study submitted. And I was just checking with Holly. I hadn't had a chance to talk to her in a while, but the rate study had been approved, and you have new base revenues coming in. Obviously, the intent is to use that money to further enhance your system, ensure its reliability, and make sure that it's prepared for the future. So I would expect an improvement in your ROR for the 25 reporting period. However, those rates were really effective for the December period, so you're not going to have a full year's worth of revenue for the 25 period. So overall, the electric fund's doing what it's supposed to be doing. You folks are right on top of the need for the rate case, and that was done well, and I think everyone was pretty pleased with those results. So nothing significant on the horizon from an accounting standard perspective. We'll work with the team on GASB 101. That's has to deal with compensated absences. It's possible it could impact the way we're approaching it, but again, I wouldn't expect anything overly material. So we'll work with both Megan and Holly as it relates to that accounting standard. I will say GASB is always working on something, and we're monitoring, as I'm sure others are. And if there's anything that pops, we'll be sure to report that back to everyone here. The other thing I saw out there, and we don't generally have a lot of single lots here, but that threshold I mentioned earlier was $750. That's got an increase to $1 million. So now, in order to trigger that single lot requirement, you have to spend in excess of $1 million. So these last couple slides are really required communications. I'll buzz through these very quickly, and then we'll have some time for any questions. There's a separate report I issue on these required communications, but what I'll tell you is that the personnel we dealt with were friendly and knowledgeable. We received the full cooperation of everyone at the village. Any audit request we made was fulfilled. Any question was responded to effectively. As noted earlier, the financial condition of the village appears strong. You do have that, particularly in that electric fund, the new revenues coming in. So it seems like you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Your accounting policies and practices are appropriate, no significant changes. We did not identify any significant or unusual transactions. We did go through accounting estimates. I indicated those 4 earlier, considering the potential for management bias. We went through assumptions for reasonableness and tested the inputs to ensure they were accurate. And obviously, we concluded that your accounting estimates were reasonable. No corrected or uncorrected audit statements. And I think you've heard me say this before. That's very rare for me to be able to say that. That means that the trial balance that was provided to me, we get the electric trial balance and then the governmental funds, was largely unchanged. We didn't identify any material errors in the data you supplied to me. Almost always we find something, and I only have a couple of clients where I can make the statement there were no corrected or uncorrected audit statements. So that's as close as I'm going to come to a compliment. We did not identify any efficient processes or controls, and nothing that would impact the village's compliance with laws or regulations. No difficulties encountered. And again, as I outlined earlier, we received full cooperation and responsiveness to all of our inquiries. And as always, we value the opportunity to work with the Village of Fairport. You folks do a very nice job. I could go into significant detail of all the work we do, all the tests we perform, and so to have a nice positive audit results like this should feel pretty good. So with that, those were my prepared comments. I do like to say, although we meet once a year, VSD is on site from time to time, and as always, Brian, Megan, Holly, Matt, they have my contact information. If you, the mayor, or the board has any questions during the year, you shouldn't hesitate to contact me. I'm available year-round for any questions or comments or concerns you folks might have.
I'm going to go ahead and ask the trustees if there's any questions. Hang on.
The only one I have, you mentioned that federal audit for something over $750,000. Is that for a single transaction, or is that for a particular project? And would we anticipate something like that next year with like the Main Street project then?
Sure. It would be collectively all of your federal awards.
Yep.
So I don't have it in front of me right now. So collectively, if all of the federal grants on all of your projects exceeded $1 million, it would trigger this extra compliance audit. And so to the extent any of your projects are federally funded, it's possible it could trigger this requirement if they were to cumulatively exceed $1 million.
We will have one for next year.
Awesome. Extra audit work for this guy.
You're welcome.
Trustee Briggs, do you have any questions? Okay. I'm good once you gave me the acronym that, and I'm thankful to see once again that statement that you were able to make about the Village of Fairport that you don't get to make about many villages or many municipalities that you do audits for about corrected or uncorrected. I'm not going to get the whole statement line. It was on the slide a couple back. It makes me very proud to have Village Manager White and Clerk Treasurer Anderson Cooper, at the helm of our financials. I think we have a fantastic team here, and I'm really excited about the fact that our audits come back the way they do.
I'd say I have about 4 or 5 clients out of BSC's 100 audit clients who can make that statement. It's just a very rare number.
Thank you.
And just to continue on, Brendan, we were talking about the electric rate and the rate of return being about a little over 1%, which shows that, hey, you know, you're not getting enough money to take care of your depreciation, your assets, investments, those types of things, and keep above water. As you can see, we make no money. Our job is to maintain our assets or infrastructure, but not necessarily make a profit, just cover our costs, which we're barely doing at a de minimis level. Today, actually, our new rates went into effect, as Brendan alluded to, coming in December. So a 7.53% increase in the base rate for Fairport Electric, and then that'll go in for a full 12 months, and then once that hits, a 2.1% increase just for basic operating costs and personnel for year 2 of this rate.
And I'll give you the opportunity, Can you talk about some of the projects that are going on that required us, aside from the cost of labor increasing astronomically, but some of the projects that FMC has going on that influence this?
Sure.
Need.
So labor personnel wasn't the driving factor in all this. It's due to, again, as the auditor alluded to on the general fund side, just a continuous investment into our infrastructure, and this is investments into our electric plant. And so we are currently in the process of overhauling all our meter systems. So we're an AMI meter system where it's all digital now, and everything comes in, and we can have controls over these types of things now. That a lot of them are radio frequency, and we're driving through the new neighborhoods to get those readings and so forth. That won't have to happen anymore. In addition to, we're making substantial upgrades to one of our substations that we did. We did this probably another, 4 years ago. We did a previous project similar. So that was a big culprit in needing to go in and make sure we have the assets in order to make these investments into our longevity, into our plant, and to keep our distribution system at a high level, right, with good integrity and limited outages and those types of things. So Matt Haggerty, our superintendent, and his team over there have done a great job. They're very financially diligent. Holly Evans, which is the CFO on the Fairport Electric side, has done an incredible job. She's been with us a little over about a year and a half. Is really, not just from the accounting side, but understanding to combine finance and the operations with respect to a very difficult industry like electric industry, and understanding the ins and outs of that. It's working with third-party regulators with the state for the first time. Very, very complicated, a great learning experience, right? But nothing easy about it, and I think she came through with flying colors. And to your point, to Brendan's point, we have an A-plus financial team with Megan at the helm in the clerk treasurer's office, and Holly leading the financial team that we have with all our other contributors to that. They do a great job. They're amazing. They're second to none. That's why they're here. Super proud to have them a part of this team, and knowing that they're looking at everything. They're really, really great. So, but yeah, that's when I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on the rates and the increases, which went in effect today for the first billing cycle.
Anything else that?
Yeah, and I'll also point out that the electric rates are different than other municipalities where you have water and sewer rates. The electric rates are PSC regulated, which means you have to go through this robust process of proving that you need the money. The PSC won't just let you arbitrarily raise rates. So the fact that we were allotted this money means it passed the arduous process of the Public Service Commission. It's different than, say, the water and sewer rates, where if you wanted to systematically rationally increase, say, water and sewer 2% every year, you could do that. With the electric fund and the PSC regulation, you have to go out and prove it, and you generally don't do it every year. You do it every whatever it takes, every 2, 3, 4 years. And you got to go through that process of putting pen to paper and diligently supporting your need.
Village Board, any further questions or comments for Brendan? Okay, thanks so much, Brendan. Brian, do we need to do a motion to approve this? Or is this just informational?
It's just information. I mean, you can approve it or not. Doesn't mean that it's not legit or doesn't part of the record. So whether you agree with it or not, it's the record.
I understand that. I'm just asking to
No,
make sure that we've
There's no
got
formal
everything
motion
done
to
that we
do
need
that.
to.
I
Okay.
think it's important that it's done in a public setting like this, and the public gets to hear what's going on with the financial issues associated with the village. So I think you've done your due diligence.
Brendan, have a fantastic evening. Thank you for joining us.
Okay, enjoy the rest of your meeting, and as always, let me know if you guys need anything. Happy to catch up with you folks.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay, Ryan, why don't you let me know when things have come back online? So we're back online. Okay, so rejoining the village board agenda for Monday, December 9th. We're going to move back from new business and move into citizens forum. So if there's anybody here this evening who wanted to speak, I hope you signed up on the sheet, and we will open citizens forum at 6:33. And Megan, who do you have on the list there?
Ginny Mayer, 51 Dewey Ave.
Does she need to state her name and address since you just said it?
I'll say it anyway.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ginny.
Hi. My name is Ginny Mayer. I live at 51 Dewey Avenue. I'm here again to talk about the Main Street project. In particular, I'm asking you to have a public discussion about accommodating safe and accessible bike travel on Main Street before the project moves any further. I think you still have time to do the right thing for safety, for accessibility, and for the climate. Just to briefly recap the facts as I understand them, 80% of the funds for this project are from the Federal Transportation Alternatives Program, which is meant to reduce car dependence. Bike lanes were mentioned as part of the project prominently through the application process, acceptance of the grant, and contracting with the design firm, but they were not included in the preliminary design. What we learned at last month's board workshop is that the federal rules for the grant limit spending to inside what the designer was calling the highway right-of-way, which on Main Street is the road plus about 10 feet on either side. In other words, not even all the way to the facades of the buildings. The project manager explained that this limitation is why project money can't be used to buy bike racks. So the current design prioritizes cars so much that there isn't enough space anywhere in the Transportation Alternatives funded project for bicycles, not racks or lanes, right now in the preliminary design. So it's kind of clear now that the project as it was funded was never curb to facade. It was inside the right-of-way. That's what was explained at the board workshop. So that also means that it's never been true that we couldn't modify the road as part of the project, including changing on-street parking and adding bike lanes. That's in contrast to what was presented at the public meeting 6 months ago. Somehow a decision was made between getting the grant and the preliminary design that to deprioritize the actual purpose of the grant funding. I think the Board of Trustees can still make this right. You don't have to keep barreling ahead with a design that's struggling to stay within the guidelines of the federal grant that is in the right-of-way. You have the power to ask for a design for a true multimodal project. Why should you have this discussion now? It feels pretty late, right? Because making our village safe for everyone, including bicyclists, is a value that I think everyone here shares. Because making it easier for bicyclists to access the village is smart. It supports residents, businesses, and visitors. Because the downtown parking study, which was just also discussed at the board workshop, tells us the village doesn't need Main Street's on-street parking. And also that improving the village's bikeability will actually manage parking demand. That was part of the parking study. And I think most importantly, because we still have no idea if building this project as it's designed now is going to put in place obstacles to efficient and safe bike lanes on Main Street in the future. We haven't seen any design that indicates that this is possible. When the Main Street project was first imagined over a decade ago, maybe the village board at the time didn't think climate change was a threat. But I know this village board knows better. Certainly, Representative Morelli, Senator Brooke, Assemblymember Lunsford understood when they wrote letters in support of this grant that this project was an opportunity to meet state fossil fuel reduction goals. The current design does nothing of substance to help us meet those goals. As I'm sure you're aware, 2023 was the hottest year on record until this year. It's really time to update the decade-old vision of Main Street streetscape to reflect our climate reality and the board and village's commitment to sustainability. I think all the stakeholders in this village, businesses and residents, deserve an opportunity to see and discuss a plan to accommodate bikes on Main Street before the first shovel is put on the ground for this project. Please use your position and responsibility as leaders in this village to get a plan developed before you finalize the design. Thank you.
I'm just going to ask Brian for clarification. My understanding is this is curb to facade, and the right-of-way is the area in front of the buildings. Am I-
Correct. When we say curb to facade, generally, for the most part, the right-of-way boundary was almost 10 feet past the roadway for the curb. Our right-of-way in this village, for almost every facade, is roughly 10 feet. So the phrasing of curb to facade is an accurate statement. That's what it's always been. In addition to areas that the facade might have been 4, 5, 6 inches, even a foot past the right-of-way boundary, to make sure those were included, we went out and procured those areas for arterial maintenance agreements, and they are actually curb to facade through the entire project corridor,
So the 10 feet that we're talking about is
roughly, yeah.
the right-of-way
That's the
from
highway
side?
boundary or the public right-of-way, correct.
Okay,
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thanks. Okay, can we have the next person?
Margaret Frank, 44 Park Circle Drive.
Good evening. Margaret Frank, 44 Park Circle Drive. I just wanted to say that I love how festive the village looks. The lights on Main Street this past weekend was just incredible with the fire department and the Santa Claus and the sleighs and cookies at the event. And I tried to make a list of everybody to thank. I probably don't know everybody. So I'm saying thank you for a wonderful weekend and wonderful holiday season. DPW, Parrington Partnership, Find It in Fairport, OSAD, firemen, volunteers who decorate the gazebo, the merchants that are all ready for the holidays, restaurants. If I forgot anybody, I'm sorry. Just wanted to thank.
Thank you so much. Megan, do we have anybody else on the list? Okay. Then we will close citizens forum at 6:39 and move back to the regular agenda. So that will take us to unfinished business. Item number 1 is a motion by the village board to approve the meeting minutes from November 12th, 2024, the village board meeting. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved. Trustee Waika.
Second, Trustee Briggs.
Any questions or comments about those meeting minutes? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous. And then item number 2, can I have a motion by the village board to approve the minutes of the November 25th, 2024 village board work session?
So moved.
By trustee Benoski.
Second, Trustee Briggs.
Any questions or comments? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I have to abstain because I was not here.
Yeah, you were not here. That's correct. Okay, so 3 in favor, 1 abstention. And that will carry. Which takes us on to new business. And we've taken care of item number 1, which was the financial statement presentation. And it takes us to item number 2, a motion by the village board to appoint Ryan Facinelli to the Hook and Ladder Company of the Village of the Fairport Fire Department. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
By trustee Briggs,
Second.
by trustee Woika. Discussion. Hey, now sounds like a really good time. Leona, what do you think about this appointment?
Well, I think it's a great cause, the volunteer fire department, just seeing more people in the community get involved. Just think it's great.
Thanks. Any questions or comments from the board?
No, just grateful for Ryan for volunteering and committing to, there's a lot of training and it's a
It
big
only
response.
increases.
It's a
Yeah.
big commitment to
These are the folks who run into the thing we run away from, so thank you.
I as well want to thank Ryan for committing to the amount of work it takes to become a volunteer firefighter. And our fire department would not be able to run if there were not volunteers like Ryan looking to join the fire department. So I want to thank him for the service to his future service to our community. With that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous. Welcome, Ryan. Thank you for volunteering to help in our department. Item number 3 is a motion by the village board to enter into agreement with McMahon LaRue Associates for land surveying services and ground penetrating radar at Mount Pleasant Mount Pleasant Cemetery.
So moved.
By,
Trustee Banowski.
thank you. Trustee Banowski.
Second, Trustee Briggs.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Go ahead.
And we inherited this cemetery recently, right? And
Not recently.
but Megan's been putting a lot of effort into documenting what's there and all of that. So we haven't done these things before yet?
This is one section, an inherited section, that we just don't have a comfort level over the map. There wasn't consistency in where stones were placed, and when they did an overlay just based on drone footage, there were so many discrepancies noted. And I felt the same way when I was doing the grave openings, and the lack of consistency with where the stones were, where they were facing. We just don't have that comfort level. We do the best we can with the burials, but there could potentially be more plots available, and those questions come up often because families want to stay together, and we want to make those accommodations, but we want to make sure we're doing it correctly. So based on the discrepancies they found just from the drone footage, this is the next step, but it is just one section of the cemetery.
Because we've done other sections.
Our section that we're currently selling is all mapped out. There's bronze markers, there's comfort levels, and the oldest section actually is very well documented. It's this section from, they call it the new section, the early 2000s.
Important that
Yeah.
we really know what's there and where it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it will eliminate every burial being a research project. So hopefully when
Excellent.
somebody wants to schedule something, I call our contractor. He's confident with the map, which he's not right now either, and it can just be a nice phone call and we can move on.
Important, very important.
To your point, I mean, this is like any infrastructure, anything you own or maintain. You need to know what you have, what's your boundaries, where things are, what's your capacity. When you're dealing with the sensitivities of cemeteries and burials and family members, there's no getting it wrong, or oops, I dug up the wrong spot, or we didn't know. So that's a big one, and it
really
comes up. It
important.
comes
Yeah,
up,
very
and there are
Really
times where we
important.
don't know. And again, I mean, this was all done by the Friends of the Cemetery type stuff, like most cemeteries in the country are for the last 100 years. And when the original folks and the founding entities either give up on it or pass on or what have you, which is generally the case, most municipalities just under what else do you do end up taking ownership or accept these properties and these services and say, okay, we'll try to maintain them because there's this belief that local governments can maintain them somehow within their infrastructure. And it's a very common transition, but ours is, this is a long time in the making. I can tell you we've been talking about this for years, but the ability to sit at your computer, look at the plot, understand the exact coordinates, where you're at, understanding the rubbings on there, which most of them are starting to come, especially the sandstone ones are starting to become really challenging to look at, understanding where those are, making sure the proper data is there, who's there. Eventually, that's where it's going to transition to where you have all of this plotted out on some type of kind of SCADA-style database where you can go look at all this and it's all mapped out accordingly. It's at the fingertips, and it needs to be that way for our records, but also just understanding what we have and what we own. So It's a big undertaking. I don't think a lot of places try to go to this level to do it, but right now it's, when you want to determine something, she has a pair of cemetery boots in her office. She straps them on and she walks up there and tries to figure it out and gets the tape measure out. It's just an old way of doing it. It's a true statement, what I'm telling you.
It's very true. I've been up there
And
with
it-
you.
It deserves more. We own the asset, we should do it correctly, and this is a step in the right direction to do that.
And it's only fair to people who are looking into placement of their loved ones there and the ones that have already placed their loved ones there. It's an appropriate thing to do. How horrifying if you took a mismeasurement. So, any other questions? Do you feel comfortable that this is going to be the end of the mapping? No, there's going to be more? All right, so Tracy, I'm just preparing you. We're going to see this again.
Okay, I knew we had a situation on
We
our
have,
hands.
we have had things previously, but just so everybody's prepared, this will come around again. With that, can I take a vote for approval of this? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous. And that moves us to item number 4, which is a motion by the village board to authorize the First Amendment to site lease agreement between the Village of Fairport and T-Mobile Northeast LLC pending final negotiations and approval by the village manager. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
By trustee Banowski,
Second.
by trustee Wojka. And I know that I got to already hear this discussion about this morning, but Brian, would you share a basic status of where we are with this particular project?
Sure. In a nutshell, T-Mobile is one of our clients on our existing village-owned cell tower. T-Mobile has merged with a number of other carriers in different areas to obviously reduce their OPEB or long-term liabilities. And so part of that is they've hired a firm to assist in negotiating these contracts across under the auspice of, well, if you don't accept a reduction in said rate, we may look at merging our facility with somewhere else that's cheaper, and you may lose all of the revenue. We have been in this process with them for a number of years now. And I think at some point we got to do something. But what I'm looking at doing is I'd like to kind of finalize this with T-Mobile in the very near future. John and I'll have some communications, but we've been calling the bluff to date, essentially for a lot of reasons. I'm saying too much on live air, but
You are.
So anyway, I just want to get that approval
This
so
is-
that I can kind of finalize
This
this.
is
in good faith with
existing
them
or
and
is this new?
This is a new proposal by them in an effort to
For a new site?
Nope,
No,
just
the
to
existing
basically
site.
reduce the revenues that they give to the village and for them to continue to operate on our cell tower,
Okay. And that cell tower is located where?
Summit Street.
Okay. Near the cemetery?
Correct.
Okay.
I have a question. Sure. Because when I read this, didn't we talk earlier in the year about adding an additional cell tower on
Yep.
FMC property?
Yep, we're in that process as well. We were talking about that with the commissioners this morning. That's also in negotiation of adding a very large tower near the FMC Operations Center. We're in contract negotiations with them as we speak and trying to facilitate a process moving forward. But there's quite a few things still to discuss and negotiate in that contract.
I am looking at that lease right now, so there are quite a few provisions that we
Yeah,
want to
I sent John a bunch of
modify.
revisions and things, but there's just a lot of gray area and empty areas that were not mentioned in there. I also heard, John, that they're planning on putting 3 other providers on there with no attachment revenue for us. So there's just a lot of things we have to discuss internally.
Yeah,
We can do
I'll
that.
be putting something into the agreement for that.
Okay, you've said enough about that publicly.
It's coming, it's working. Or it's working behind the scenes. Yeah, okay.
Any questions from the board? Earliana? I told you the wrong one. I was telling you about the new one, not the existing one.
I'm good.
Okay. With that, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will carry unanimously. Which takes us to item number 5, a motion by the village board to approve the establishment of a new capital project in the fire rolling stock capital plan titled Rescue 3418, and to approve the following budget amendment for H3410.2, fire equipment, $31,200. And that's a positive, and the amendment includes H5031, which is the transfer from the rolling stock reserve for the same amount of $31,200. Can I have a motion and a second for that, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Briggs? Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
Second.
By Trustee Wojka. Briefly, do you want to share it's what this means in terms of we're moving money from a reserve to the fire equipment fund, correct?
Yeah, as itemized in the memo, this was originally established a couple years ago for the full budget amount. We only received purchase orders for the actual vehicle, so that project was closed out and there was no budget in the next year. And now that we know the cost of these extra items, we're reestablishing the capital project for the amounts needed and using the money in the reserve to fund it.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous, which takes us to item number 6, is a resolution by the Village Board of the Village of Fairport authorizing additional expenditures from the fire rolling stock capital reserve for the full year 2024-2025 capital expenditure plan.
So moved.
By Trustee Banowski,
Second.
by Trustee Briggs. And,
This is just, now we moved it, now we can spend it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's restricted money, so you need a resolution to use it.
Right.
Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? That will carry unanimously as well. So another set of motions that are very, very similar, just a different department. Item number 7 is a motion by the village board to increase the garbage truck capital project that originally established in the full year 2023-2024 capital expenditure plan to $250,000, and to approve the following budget amendment, H5010.2 DPW equipment for $29,786, and a transfer from the capital reserve, which is H5031, for the same amount, $29,786. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
By Trustee Briggs and
Second.
Wojka is the second. And any questions about that? Is it to cover the difference in the cost of a garbage truck? Right,
Got it.
right?
That's exactly what it is. So we've been trying to get this truck for a couple of years now. The chassis has been delayed and delayed and delayed. We wouldn't be getting it this time. Jason has become an expert in procurement of garbage trucks and chassis. We're going with another vendor after doing a lot of diligence, working with people about how these boxes work. Does it actually, we don't want to get an inferior product, that type of thing. We feel like we're going to be able to do this and do this in a timely fashion that meets our budgetary constraints and the need to replace a truck. The truck that we have now that we're waiting on, but this one is failing by the day. Our fear is that something significant of tens of thousands is going to fail, and we have to fix it in order to get 6 months till this truck's delivered, that type of thing. So this can't happen any quicker than it's going to. But yes, that's what this is. It's just increased cost. But the problem is we've been trying to get this same vehicle for 2 years, so prices didn't stick around for 2 years when we got these initial quotes. So that's just what happens.
I remember seeing it in the budget.
So please compost more.
Cost more.
Recycle and compost.
Yes.
More compost, yes.
Any further questions or concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will pass, which takes us to the paired resolution, a resolution by the Village Board of the Village of Fairport authorizing additional expenditures from the General Capital Reserve for the full year 2024-2025 capital expenditure plan. Can I have a motion and a second,
So
please?
moved.
By trustee Briggs,
I'll second that.
by trustee Banowski. And any questions? Good, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And that one is also unanimous. Taking us to item 9, I need a motion by the village board to declare surplus certain village-owned vehicles and equipment and discard them by means of public auction, sealed bids, or private sale. And the items are 2 Flight Model 3102.890 single-phase sanitary sewer pumps. I'm going to be out there bidding on those. That is if we approve this. Any
So moved.
questions? Oh, sorry, I skipped over you.
Did we move it yet?
Well, I was
No,
gonna
we
say-
didn't. Trustee Briggs made
moving
the
it.
motion.
Sure. So I'll second that.
Banowski
Now I
is the
have
second.
questions.
And now we can talk about it. I'll be buying one when they go on the market. I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. That was my only question.
No, I was just joking. I'm afraid I don't have a use for one of those at our house.
I also do not have a use for one of those. So,
They're very huge and heavy. I doubt you want one.
absolutely not.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will pass. Taking us to item 10, which is a motion by the village board to accept the November 2024 financial statements for the Village of Fairport and the October 2024 financial statements for the Fairport Municipal Commission. Go for it, Tracy.
So moved.
By trustee Briggs.
Second,
Trustee Boyka. Any questions for Megan or Halia in absentia?
No?
No.
Everything clear? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That will be unanimous, which will take us to a motion by the village board to authorize payment of the audited bills. Take your pick.
So moved.
Heidi's
Couldn't remember
going
if that
to
was
give you the
during
word.
discussion or after. All right, it's at this point. I have reviewed the bills and found everything to be in order.
Great, that's the motion, and
I have also reviewed everything, all the bills, and found everything to be in order.
there's the second. Any questions about said bills?
Nope. They do a great job, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I'm going to make you a little cheat sheet. Okay. That will carry unanimously, taking us to item number 12, which is a motion by the village board to amend the previously approved amount of $60,000 to pay health and dental insurance premiums paid in the month of December to $50,942.13.
So moved.
By trustee Banowski,
Second.
by trustee Briggs.
So-
Any question? Go ahead.
The only thing I would add, and we didn't bring it up before, it was 1.8 tons is what we processed through the compost
That's great.
this past month.
And it's how much a ton?
70, I think it's 75 a ton.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
1.8 tons?
Well, but
So we're
the,
down
so
a
the
little.
75 per ton, but then there's also the cleaning of all the bins and the maintenance of the bins, which also add to the fee.
Okay. So back to the health insurance. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Will take us to 13, a motion by the village board to authorize the clerk treasurer to pay health and dental insurance premiums for the month of January in an initial estimated amount not to exceed $60,000, subject to audit and amending authorization by the village board at their regularly scheduled January meeting.
So moved.
By trustee Banowski,
Second.
by trustee Wojka. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And that will carry unanimously as well, which takes us to announcements and committee reports. And if you would like to start, trustee Briggs?
Yes, and I'm the village representative on the Public Arts Committee. So we had our year-end retreat, and the goals for next year would be on a smaller scale, getting some artwork on the back of the wayfaring signs, electrical boxes, and storm sewers. So just smaller projects versus a big sculpture.
So real quick, the wayfaring signs, why am I drawing a blank on that?
On a what?
The
I didn't-
signs in our parking lots.
The wayfinding, sorry,
What
I
did-
misheard.
Parking signage. Yeah.
Yep, gotcha. Sorry.
It's just screaming out for something to be on the back there.
Would I just ask the Public Art Committee before they take any action, is that they would
Brian is seriously in the loop with everything.
well, because there's, FMC needs to be involved in the transformers, the DPW needs to be approved, and also Jill Weidrich has been doing all the negotiations for the wayfaring sign. So just want to make sure that we have the right people involved before anybody takes any action first.
Okay. What was that? They have-
It's called wayfaring? Yeah, I was gonna say,
Wayfinding.
okay.
Oh,
thought-
I'm a sailor at heart. Apparently, I'm right on.
I'm
ma-
sitting there trying to
the
think about the
maps in
canal.
the maps in all of the parking lots
There
that
was
are
an
publicly owned.
idea to take the Canal Day posters and then take off like the dates, but they have the merchants own those imagery. And to get them into a poster form and just adhere it to the back, so there'll be pictures of Fairport around on there. Working on adhesives and different types of things that, so they don't damage the sign, and the longevity of how these posters could be attached and blown up and put on there.
Okay, I would have whoever's doing that work to work with Jason and Brian about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, on the website, I thought it was great that we have this pop-up, are you interested in serving on a volunteer board? And to have, the Public Arts Committees actually has a vacancy. So you can go on there if anyone wants to volunteer for planning, zoning, the tree board, or historic preservation. And also, the art committee has an opening as well. I'd like to make a request. If you go under the departments, it does list the planning, zoning, historical preservation, and tree board. If we could just add the Public Arts Committee on there. And then I was checking out some of those, and similar to like the tree board, you know, just a little mission statement or background list of the officers, and then a link that goes to the Public Arts Committee website would be great. I did notice, and this is just thought for the board over the next couple of years, I did notice the funding for the tree board was listed right there on their little site there. Now, trees are really expensive and important and wonderful for a community, but so is public art, and public art is really expensive as well. And right now, the village funds it at $5,000 a year, so maybe thinking in the future. Just for an example, one sculpture, low end of a public sculpture, to even get people interested, quality people interested, that starts at like 25 to 30,000 per sculpture. So just some funding. Again, it's tough to get momentum moving forward with public art trails when it's all revolves around money, when you don't have the money really to do a lot of these things. But the funding does come from the village for $5,000. We sell T-shirts and stickers. The Merchants Association does the duck race, which they devote to public arts. And then Manager White made a donation from one of his municipal, thank you. And so heavily reliant on grants, but this year Manager White worked with Pat Rapp and Sue Steele on a Canalway grant. So hopefully, they've applied for it many times, but you got to get the grants to get the artwork in there. I'll let
So-
anyone know once we get it.
Is that a state grant? Is it a,
The Canalway, yes.
yeah, okay,
Heritage Canalway, they do grants twice a year,
okay.
but it would be specifically for sculpture on the canal,
Yeah.
if they would fund it. OSED's a great supporter of public art. They actually did the sundial and the artisan signs for Thomas Creek. And in the new design for Thomas Creek, they have a spot for sculpture. And I know their plan for the north side parking lot, which is put on hold, also had sculpture and public art. So just, they really seem to understand that art is an economic driver for the community. And I think in our streetscape, Manager White has made sure we have some designated spots for sculpture. Now, the $2 per capita per year, I think, is how the tree board is funded. I know the county has it built right into their budget, and so does the city of Rochester, public arts funds. And I know Sue Steele has met with Jill, trying to somehow figure out if we can get funding in the zoning code update or attached to building permits in some way. But that's Sue and Jill. So I just thought this board is going to be together for the next couple of years, so I'm just planting seeds for public art. And in the January planning meeting, which is coming up, village board members volunteer and take on responsibilities. Like I know last year, Emily represented OSED, but now the mayor did it this year. And Emily used to audit the bills, but now Heidi and Adam are doing that. Now, Mike Foligno was a representative on the Public Arts Committee, and I've been the village representative for 2 years, and I took over for Matt Brown. But I'm saying, I don't have to be the village representative on the
I
art
think that's
committee.
an offline discussion. I do all those appointments, and I do them by discussing them with the members of the board. So I would love to have a conversation with you offline about this.
Oh, I was just opening up for anybody. I mean, it doesn't have to be me, so if anyone wants
I
to
think
do the reading.
I think it's a conversation that you and I can have, and then I'll take care of discussing it with the rest of the board members.
Oh, all right, I was just throwing it out there. Somebody can take
Thanks.
it.
That's great. And I think that on my board, looking at priorities for 2025, we're already at 2025. One of the things, while we're doing the zoning code update, one of the things that I'd like to see us work on as a village board is review the public art plan and update it, because there are some things that are in that public art plan that was adopted in 2017? 2015, that are out of date and need to be readopted by the village board. So
Sure.
we'll be looking at that. What would be really helpful is if there's only one appointment that gets done by the village board for the committee. Last year, there were a bunch of names. So if whoever the committee has decided who's going to be the chair this year, if you send me an email with that, I'll make sure that it goes on the organizational meeting.
Sure. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Any other announcements from Adam or Heidi?
Only thing I would say, I know I circulated it amongst us as well, but Monroe County has a survey where they're looking into, they're gauging the temperature of the county for how much people would like to do composting in the county. So they have a live survey. They ask a whole series of questions. Don't worry, it won't make your brain hurt. It's just kind of getting your opinion on, would you like to see composting? What methods or means would you be interested in seeing? And other questions related to cost on that. So, go in, please do that, because what would be great too is the more communities that are doing that, the more we can all kind of do our part for the environment, and then, take what we're doing here to the next level, hopefully. But yeah, check it out. Unfortunately, the website name is not very friendly. I don't remember what it is. It's long. So just go online, search Monroe County compost survey, and it will come up. I think it might even be the first result.
It is the first result.
There we go.
And then it'll take you to Adam Bellows' page, and then you can scroll down, and whether you are a business or you are a resident, then you can kind of take the survey based on how you're taking the survey, who you're taking it as.
Thanks.
So yeah, please do that.
If you want can we post a link somewhere to that? Or is it just more like having people go?
Brian, would you mind posting that on our Facebook page?
I would love to. I'll do that in the morning.
I'll send.
Thanks.
Do you want me to send you the link?
I'm looking at it right now.
Solid.
I did it on my phone. It's very easy.
Yeah, it's not a great address though, is it? It's like
Nobody wants to look for spelling out that address. Heidi, anything?
I don't have any big announcements. I just want to say thank you to everyone that has been part of making this village look magical for the holiday season. It's so great. It's such a Hallmark movie vibe. I love it. I appreciate all the work that goes into it, to making it magical and wonderful.
All right. So, Leanna, I have a question for you that you shared with me that isn't village related, but I think it's important to share. So, did you hear from one of your universities? Are you on? There we go.
I did. So I got my first college acceptance, University at Buffalo.
congratulations.
And thanks for sharing that. You have five people five people who all want to hear about your journey to college. So, and we'll force the residents of this village to hear about it too.
It's great to share successes.
It is great to share successes. I'm just going to share, I attended the FMC meeting this morning. They are working on preparations for end of life for some of the chargers in the village, and they're trying to figure out the best way to move forward with the charging stations in the village.
This is for the actual charging stations.
This is the actual
When it's time to get,
charging
like, new ones,
stations.
there's-
Yeah, so it's all early in the planning.
Okay.
But they're looking at different options for how we afford to move forward with buying new stations as they come to end of life, and how we manage the charging stations themselves.
Okay.
If we have to start charging for them, how many people are not going to use the charging stations anymore versus charging at their homes. So it was really interesting discussion, and it's to be continued. But I just wanted to share that they're working on the strategic planning for how they move forward with the charging stations. And this morning, sadly, maybe happily for him, was Commissioner Frisch's last meeting. So he is done after today's meeting. He's resigned. So we thanked him for his, I had the wrong number, his 20 years of service on the FMC, the Fairport Municipal Commission, and we are so thankful that he has served the village in that way for the last 20 years. Trustee Briggs brought up the fact that if you go to the homepage of our website, fairportny.com, there's a pop-up. There are a few positions available on land use boards. And if you'd like to send an application in, I believe the information about where to get the application and who to send it to is there on the homepage. And even if we fill those spots, it's always great to have applications on file. So if you're interested in serving your community, go to our website, fill out an application and submit it, and we'll be talking to people in the near future. And I think that's all I had. For the upcoming village board meetings, there's a regular village board work session meeting scheduled for December 23rd, 2024 at 6 p.m. I'm going to ask the village board the question that I asked Village Manager White a couple days ago, knowing the date of this work session meeting. So, Village Manager White, is there urgent matters that need to be taken care of on December 23rd?
I don't see anything that's urgent. We can always meet and talk about a lot of things and stuff like that. Do I think I can wait till January or something like that? Sure, we can always come up with some more meetings. I want to get together with the board starting early January, to continue our strategic planning initiatives and discussions and get those initiatives outlined and documented. So that's really important that we do that. And then just take over some miscellaneous things. But, does it have to happen for the holidays? No. If the board would like to meet, more than happy to do that. But there's nothing that's pressing that requires your attention or any type of legislative action.
So that's the cue for me to ask you all, would you be disappointed if we postponed anything that we were going to do at the December 23rd work session? I'm looking in both directions. I need a head that swivels. If we postponed that content until January.
I am totally fine with that.
See, I thought we were going to ask if we could, if we needed one more chair for the big guy.
Santa.
Yeah.
Santa?
Yeah.
Oh. I don't
He
think,
can't make it?
I don't think he can make it, and I
All
don't
right,
think
well.
he's bringing us anything this year.
Yeah,
So
no,
I'm just asking your consideration if you are desirous of holding that meeting. I'm using one of Brian's words, desirous. If you desire to have that meeting, or if you are comfortable waiting until January, then I will cancel that meeting. Is that? I'm comfortable waiting. I thought you would be. I thought all of you would
I think
be.
that's fine.
All right.
Yes.
Unless you have something that urgently requires our attention on December 23rd, Village Manager White, would you please postpone that content until January? And then the next question I have is, our regular village board meeting is scheduled for January 13th. We have in the past had a separate organizational meeting when we have had people who have recently been elected. We don't have anybody that was elected to office this past fall. I'm trying to test the waters about, I think you said you couldn't be there the 13th, about holding our organizational meeting before our regularly scheduled meeting on the 13th, or if you would prefer to have a separate meeting the first week of January. And I'm just looking for feedback. There's nothing that's gonna be lost or gained.
Essentially, what would happen if you did this? We're just trying to consolidate meetings, right? That's all this is. So you can have a separate meeting, and we'll do that. The org meeting is pretty straightforward, and you make your appointments and do your typical legislative actions and so forth. But what I thought we could just do is, because it's a pretty fast process. We'll have two agendas: one for the organizational meeting, one for the village board meeting. We'll start the organizational meeting like we would any other time, like any other village board meeting. We'll go through that agenda. You'll adjourn that meeting, and then you'll commence with the new village board meeting. You just do it all in one night. It's really up to you how you'd like to proceed, but just so you don't have to meet a second time, and it should be a fairly quick process. I just thought maybe doing this would be logistically efficient, but it's really up to the board's opinion and preference.
I'm also with the understanding that you're not going to be able to attend. So if you would rather do the org meeting another time, that's also okay as well. Or you could just watch from wherever you are.
No, I mean, I trust everybody. Well, no. What I'm saying is sure. You know, like if
Yeah. We can go,
I don't
we
wanna-
can go over the agenda with you in advance. That way you can make sure that your position on whatever's on there is
sure, that
is
sounds
done
fine.
in
And you can
advance.
send me, or
Yeah,
Brian,
whatever you'd like.
Yeah.
if you have any concerns about anything that we're talking about, so that if you have questions or anything, that we make sure that we get those questions answered.
Sure, yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so I think we have consensus that the organizational meeting will be held on January 13th along with our regular village board meeting. And Brian and Meg are like, yay, we don't have an extra meeting.
You just got to do one, and you got to call it that way. They're required by village law in New York State, so we got to have something that's called an organizational meeting that kind of goes through the typical flavor stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think that piece of business is taken care of. I just want to make sure that, well, Emily didn't get to state her feelings about it. I'm sure that she doesn't mind the 23rd. And if Emily, if you're listening, or I'll talk to her offline and make sure she's okay with it as well. And with that, the meetings, those upcoming meetings, so the organizational meeting and the village board meeting will be held Monday, January 13th, 2025 at 6 p.m. So we will start the organizational meeting at 6 p.m. Upon completion, we'll begin the regular village board meeting. And that meeting will be held in Fairport Village Hall, 31 South Main Street, Fairport, New York, in the second floor boardroom. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the village board meeting this evening.
So moved.
By trustee Banowski. By trustee Briggs. All in favor? Aye. There's no discussion allowed with this. Have a very happy holiday. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for the meeting this evening. It's always great when we have live visitors here. So thank you for being here, and have a good evening. And
Yeah.